Okay, can I get everyone's attention here at the front, please? Awesome. So we're going to transition into our book club circle. We all know how this transition works, but can I get someone to just remind the class of like the 2 things that we always say to keep in mind? Go ahead, Chris.
Quietly because the test room next door.
Good. So Miss Spratt's room is next door, and she can hear everything that goes on in here. So let's make sure that we're quiet. How do we make sure that we're quiet, Margarita? Yeah, picking up our desks and picking up our chairs. What's another thing we need to keep in mind? We're picking up chairs, we're picking up desks, and then what else? Yeah.
Did we already say stay silent?
No, we didn't. Awesome. So we need to stay silent, okay? So let's start with this part of the room first. Picking up our desks, moving our chairs to the center, and make sure that you bring everything you need to the circle. I'm going to need 2 readers. I need someone to read the paragraph at the bottom of 44 that starts with Malcolm began. And then I need someone to read the next one on page 45, Malcolm learned. 2 volunteers. Tiara, will you read where it says Malcolm began, and then Joy, will you pick up on the second paragraph, Malcolm learned? All right, everyone should be following along. Go ahead, Tiara.
Malcolm began to talk like the other young men who frequent the pool hall. In Roxbury, you could tell who a person was by the way he or she spoke. Did they use the latest slang? Did they know enough to call a white person an oaf? Did they know what going through changes meant? And the sure way of being rejected was to be a square, someone who did not know what was happening on the streets of Roxbury. The blacks on the hill might have rejected the people in Roxbury, but the stylish, down-to-earth people in Roxbury were rejecting the so-called elites.
Malcolm learned the language of inner city Roxbury easily and learned something else. In Roxbury, your intelligence and know-how were measured in different ways than they were in other places in which you had lived. In Lansing, your survival was dependent on the goodwill of white folks, and what you knew didn't matter much if you were black. In Roxbury, what you knew was the only thing that was going to get you over. And what you had to know was how to deal with people, how to survive in the streets, and how to hustle up a dollar and an image.
Nice, thank you. Nice job, both of you. Go ahead, Tamar, and read our questions.
As a person in the environment affect how he or she acts and speaks?
Okay, did everyone hear? No. All right, go ahead and try to read a little bit louder and prouder for us.
Does a person's environment affect how he or she acts and feels?
Okay, so we know that, thank you. We know that Malcolm was acting differently in Roxbury in the pool halls than he was in like his schools that he was attending previously, right? When he was living with the foster families. So if we're thinking about, bless you, if we're thinking about like different environments and how that affects the way we act and speak, like what do you all think about that? Is that something that happens with us today? Like, is that something that happens with you all in the world? What do we think?
It does happen in the world today. It's called peer pressure. People influence other people to do things based on how they live in that area.
Yeah, some people just judge the person off where they come from or where they've been. Like if you're from Chicago, they automatically think that you're like rowdy, loud, and do whatever you want.
So they have expectations for what you'll act and speak like?
Yeah.
Some people have to speak a certain way depending on the type of group they're around. Like, well, it's not people, well, more intelligent people around here. Some will act a different way, but if more of the class counts were in, they were.
I think it's like in today's society, sometimes kids act different when they're away from their parents than they do when they're with them.
That's a good example.
But, I think
why it is, because, you know, like, it's an example, like, they think if you're black, you're ghetto and stuff like that, but, like, really you talk formal. You're like, oh, you talk weird, you know, you don't talk how you're supposed to talk.
That's a really good point.
I think, like, if you, like, live in a bad neighborhood, you like, act bad. If you live in, like, a smart neighborhood, you act smart, look smart.
Okay, again, like reiterating like expectations that people have based on where you're from and the environment that you're from. Okay. All right, nice job. Go ahead and write your summary statement on your discussion tracker. Thinking about the different things that everybody said. Be finishing up here in the next like 30 seconds. Okay, who is question number 2? Madison. Okay, go ahead and read the card for us.
It's text to text, EQ number 7.
Okay, text to text and essential question number 7. Yeah, go ahead.
Reread page 62.
Let's do that first. Reread page 62. I'm actually only going to need one reader for page 62. The second paragraph that you see on the page starting with the 20-year-old Malcolm. Before we read this though, what do we remember, like what happened with Malcolm? How did he end up getting arrested? Like how did that come about? Tiara.
We were part of a game, and well, not a game, but part of a group of girls, and they would spot out houses to rob. And this time, he robbed the house and turned it away from me, and it was reported. Still history in this jail.
Good. So the police were waiting for him at the jewelry store, right? And then they picked him up and took him to jail. So this is talking about like when he's in jail. Can I get one reader for that one paragraph? Go ahead, Justice.
The 20-year-old Malcolm was put into prison with people who had stolen, who had killed, who were career criminals. To escape this dehumanizing process, to remain an alert, vital person, Malcolm needed to separate himself from the bulk of the prison population. To do this, he relied on the fact that he was bright. He began to read as much as he could and also began taking a correspondence course in English.
Okay. Madison, go ahead and read our questions. Nice job.
How does Malcolm's experience in prison relate to Steve Harmon from Monster? Explain.
Okay, so we're making a text-to-text connection to Steve Harmon and his experience in prison.
I guess it's kind of like because Steve was kind of nervous because he was scared of all the people around him because they had done stuff like murder and stuff that scared him, so he didn't want to end up like that.
It relates to Steve because when his mother visited Steve, she brought a Bible for him, so he was reading to her, like, trying not to be like one of those bad people.
That's a really good point. And what did it say that Malcolm started reading? About? Islam. Good.
Okay, I said that they both don't belong in jail and Steve Harmon is younger.
Steve Harmon was younger, you're right. He was like, he was a young teen. Good point.
Naomi.
They had both did something to separate themselves from everybody else